Coming up this week, we ask you about Canada's involvement in Myanmar. Also, what are the biggest challenges facing the Liberal Party of Canada today? This and much more to come. Hitting the streets, this is Outburst. Hello and welcome to Outburst. I'm Glenn McGuinness. Myanmar, also known as Burma, is a sovereign state located in Southeast Asia. It's speculated to be the fastest growing refugee crisis on Earth. Since last August, 617,000 Rohingya people have been fleeing from violence and human rights violations at the hands of the Burmese army into neighboring Bangladesh. A recent report released concerning Canada's involvement in the crisis recommends that we accept refugees fleeing persecution, that we impose sanctions on the country, and that we contribute $150 million over 4 years, just to name a few. So, what do you think we should do? Our question: what should the federal government do now about the humanitarian and security crisis in Myanmar?
That's a tough one. There's so much going on over there. I feel that we should be contributing. Those people who are pushed out of their homes, help them get back in their homes.
Canada's done about as much as can be done directly with the inquiry Bob Rae made on behalf of the Government of Canada, finding that indeed there has been ethnic cleansing or genocide in relation to the Rohingya. It appears that we can move for sanctions of the United Nations, bilateral activity or multilateral activity there, and then perhaps embarrass Aung San Suu Kyi by removing her honorary Canadian citizenship, which should be done straight away. She's the head of state. She has a responsibility for the Rohingya safety, and she's done really very little speaking out about it. And perhaps petition to have her Nobel Prize questioned as to its validity.
I really don't know. I think they need to take a close look at Bob Rae's report and decide what the appropriate action is. Certainly it's quite outrageous what's happening there, and it's very sad. I think the the idea of identifying individuals through part of the World Court is probably somewhat misguided, because it seems to be that the country as a whole has undertaken this project, and they're all involved, they're all guilty.
I just don't know. You need to give some help to people that are in trouble, but it's just so sad.
They really need to maybe come on stronger with the government there and not sort of dance around the issue with them. They don't seem to directly attack them and such. Maybe come on a little bit stronger.
They should send their emissaries to Myanmar and have them state the case for. And plus, we should accept refugees from that situation en masse, right? Because they're going out to sea and they're falling prey to the oceans and stuff. And because that whole area is relatively, it's different countries and all that. They would all have different policies on how to deal with the refugees. So maybe some kind of a UN council to deal with the situation.
Help them out. It's sad for those people. We're fortunate to be living here in Canada, so I feel for these people. Yeah, we should help them.
In what ways would you like to see some help?
Send some money, or someone, there's a lot of people that want to go and help out, help them do that, I think that would be good. Volunteering, or even people that have the skills to go out there, or bring them here.
One of the pros and cons of being a have country is you have to concentrate on what's at home, you have to concentrate on what's abroad. I don't know, in the grand scheme of things, of all the issues abroad that we could be involved in, if Myanmar is one of the key ones or not.
Oh, what they should do. I'm not quite sure, because I don't know all the issues. We don't hear a lot about it in Canada. I guess continue putting pressure through organizations like the UN, maybe, to you know, see what they can do. It sounds like it's a pretty complex issue there, right? It's tough. I really don't know.
I think there's a role for peacekeepers there in terms of if refugees have to go back. I don't think those refugees can go back at this point. I think it's a United Nations issue, and that neighboring countries could assist. I used to work abroad, so I mean in Asia there are other Asian countries that could be helping out.
I'm not entirely sure, just because we have a lot of our own issues that need to be like done with, and yes, we should help in some sense, but there's other things here that need to be fixed as well before we can try and take care of others.
I don't think it's our business. I don't think the federal government should be knight in shining armor all over the world with our money. Yeah. Take care of us. End of story.
You think money and help would be better spent on our own people?
Should only be spent on our own people.
In what province or territory would you find the polar bear capital of the world? Northwest Territories, Manitoba, or Nunavut?
I guess in Manitoba.
Northwest Territories.
I'd say Nunavut.
I'm going to say Northwest Territories.
Manitoba.
It's Manitoba.
Churchill.
Every year, between July and November, roughly 1,000 polar bears migrate to Churchill, Manitoba, as the Arctic sea ice melts, earning it the nickname Polar Bear Capital of the World. For many families across the country, the cost of childcare can be crippling. In Ontario, for one child per year, the cost could be roughly $17,000. But the Ontario provincial Liberals have promised some relief. Premier Kathleen Wynne says her party will provide free childcare for kids aged 2.5 to kindergarten, beginning in 2020. It's a $2.2 billion plan, which opponents of Wynne say the province can't afford. And if Wynne loses the next provincial election scheduled for June, then whoever wins will likely scrap the plan. So we took this question to you. Can provincial governments afford to offer free daycare?
I don't see how provincial governments can afford not to offer free daycare. I mean, this is primarily allowing the mechanism of the province itself to get to work every day and stop worrying about the quality of their children. I mean, there's at all levels people are primary concerns their family. How's their family doing? I mean, they should not be sitting worrying at the office about how they're going to make the next childcare bills, and those bills are rising. And I mean, at the same time, we want to know that our children are being put into daycares where the people running those daycares are being paid well. So this alleviates a lot of stress on a lot of people, and then allows those people to go on about the business of making money. I think better. It's more effective all around. I can't see why that wouldn't be happening.
I think so. Yeah, maybe with those who need it. I know it's a lot of my friends are of the age of having kids, and I know it's a huge cost. A lot of them aren't working anymore because it costs a fair bit for it, so it makes more sense for them to just stay home, look after their kids themselves.
Yeah, I've heard talk, and then I think the feds too have talked about a federal daycare program. Yeah, I think, goodness gracious, it's basically still a recession, so I just think the question is it a good use of money? Is it an investment? I don't know that it necessarily is the best use of money, but I could see where people are coming from, because there's people that can't afford to care for the kids while they're working. So I get that, but I just don't know if it's necessarily the best government program.
No, not unless they want to raise taxes.
So you wouldn't be in favor of that kind of thing?
Well, I'm not against it. I just think before people ask for free things, they have to be prepared to pay for it in some way. It's not going to be free.
No. Everybody gets a pretty decent wage in Canada, and
I can't imagine the full burden needs to go towards the government. Subsidizing, per household income would make more sense, but not taking on the whole daycare system, no.
I don't think that they could, just based off of the fact that I feel like they're putting all their money into other things at the moment. But I do think it would be beneficial because, most people these days either have to stop working to raise their children and have one person go to work because it's unaffordable daycare. So,
yes. I think it would be a good for the country because it would free up more people to be able to work and increase productivity. I see it happen in countries in Scandinavia, and it actually improves their effectiveness as a country to produce more for their people.
Oh, I know personally a few people that are in that situation, paying $800 a month for daycare, and it's just not a lot of income to support that. That's a big chunk, so it's probably my input there, just knowing people that are in a nasty situation. It's a very expensive ordeal for a lot of people, mostly newer people that have come over to the country. I think are finding it a bit of a shock.
So you would be in favor of that kind of thing if they could find the funds for that?
Yeah, it doesn't affect me personally now. It may affect my I got one grandkid, so it may affect my daughter a little bit, but she's in Ontario at this point. So yeah, I think there should be some attention paid to it anyway, yeah.
Well, I don't think anyone else can logically offer the service. So I think that whether they can afford it or not, they're going to have to, fit it in.
We do it on the Quebec side, almost free. It's almost free. It's not free, but it definitely is cheaper than on the Ontario side.
So they have things in place over there to help you out?
That's what they do, yes.
Okay, sir, and what do you think?
I think it's a good idea. I think a country this big, this large, with all the resources that we have, etc., we're a rich country, and I think we can afford things like that. And if it means me paying a little more, then I don't have an issue with it.
Depends on how they do it. If they offer quality daycare, then it should be more than affordable. If it's done in a way in which it allows more people to enter the workforce and be more productive, all for it. If it's simply another bureaucratic nightmare, then it's going to be a mess. But overall, I think the government has, in my opinion, a horrendous record of offering value for money. Far better put in the private sector and give something like a charter school grant, in my opinion.
They should be able to. There's a lot of young women out there and mothers that work, and I think it should be free. Yeah.
Even at the taxpayer's expense?
Well, we spend money on a lot of other things, so this would help these mums. And, 'cause I raised 4 children of my own, and I was lucky. I was a stay-at-home mom, but a lot of young women and mothers don't today. So, yeah, I think they should. Yeah, we spend it on other things, so why not help out the kids?
No, I don't. No. We're taxed to the max already, and it's got to come from somewhere. And if you decide to have children, you should be prepared to take care of them.
I'm not sure, but I think it's a good idea. It would definitely help a lot of women and men who are either single parents or have to have both, 2 jobs each. I think it's a good idea, but I'm not sure if they can afford it or not.
Depends on how they're going to manage their budget, obviously. I think I think they probably could with qualifications with an income measuring, so more highly paid people could probably subsidize. They might not like it, but they can afford to do it.
So you're saying higher paid people could do it?
A grading scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think your ability to pay daycare should be based on that.
What title is given to the Prime Minister of Canada? Honourable, Right Honourable, Excellency.
Oh my gosh, I'll feel terrible if I get this wrong. I would say honorable.
Right Honourable?
Honorable. A.
Honorable?
Right Honourable.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Very good.
The title Right Honourable applies for life to the Governor-General, Prime Minister, and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada. These days, privacy is important to many Canadians, especially when it comes to social media. The way it works now is information and interests you have can be passed on to outside sources, which includes political parties. Unlike most Western countries, Canada has no privacy laws when it comes to political parties. And the three major parties in Canada have also purchased data on Canadians. So, are you okay with your personal information being utilized to woo your support? Our question. How comfortable are you with political parties using social media to target and persuade voters?
I think I'm comfortable with that because it gives us a way to get more in touch with them. And since if we're not reading the news as much or watching the news, it gives us a way to see their platforms and what they're saying.
I think it's fine. I think it's a way to get your message across. Social media is so big in our society today that I think the political parties could definitely use that. I don't think it's a negative thing because they need to get their message across some way. And social media now today is a way to get that message across.
I am not comfortable with it at all. And let's face it, social media is a primarily youth-based forum. The youth is not who should be swaying our votes. The youth is not who should be, yay, let's get this pot thing going, let's get this going, let's do this.
They just don't have enough life experience.
There's not enough life experience for them to be weighing in heavily on such an important topic that faces our nation.
As for using social media is a revolution for the world. I mean, the world is literally in a revolution right now because of social media. Arab Spring, everything going on in the Middle East, they now have a voice. Every person now has a voice, and they're voicing their opinions. And when the government uses it and weaponizes that tool, it basically becomes propaganda. It's a propaganda tool. And people, it's like seeing something on TV. Someone says something on TV, it's got to be true. And using that tool as a weaponized mass propaganda tool is negative in every single way.
It's dangerous, yeah.
That is something that you can't necessarily control, right? I think nowadays with technology, data is ubiquitous, right? And it will be tough to be able to impose any sort of limitation or restriction on that, per se.
Yeah, that was a conversation I was having this morning actually with my partner, and I think one of the biggest issues is because people don't have an education on how to protect their privacy and their data and how it's being used, they don't have a strong understanding of how it's being used against them and how things are not necessarily accurate that they're viewing. So it's being used as a form of news and education, and I don't think it's an accurate use of that. And I think that's where I could see regulations being beneficial. Is how the data is used to actually sway elections, because I think that is a serious problem of people getting very specific views on stuff that might not be accurate, and it's very tunnel vision.
I'm not particularly comfortable with that because when you target a voter, you can target them with a certain message. So you can have a political party where they have certain policies that you might agree with and certain policies that you might disagree with. They can know about you and only show you the policies that you would agree with, and therefore influence you in a way that you wouldn't expect. And apparently you can even go on, they can even fix their website so they know it's you, and they hide everything that you wouldn't agree with. Apparently the technology is there, which is that's quite disconcerting because you want people to know what they're genuinely voting for.
I think it's just the way the world works now. Social media is simply the advertising of today. It used to be newspaper ads or television ads or radio spots. Now it's social media. I don't think it's really any different.
Well, it's going to happen. You have to keep yourself well informed and things like that. Like Donald Trump is certainly a picture of that. I mean, he tweets all kinds of things which are wrong. So I think it's up to you to keep yourself well informed and everything.
depends on the definition of target. I think most companies, it should be the same rules as a private company. If any private company can set the same laws, I don't have any problem with a political party doing that. If my information is readily available, if I put that online, that should be grabbed. Should be able to be grabbed, I should say. But, you know, should they go into my entire history, create a profile of me and be track that universally for everything I look online? No.
I don't think there's a political party these days that cannot be using social media. It's becoming so integrated into the way that people are discussing their opinions, relating to one another. It's become such a function of communications at this point. I can't see how they can ignore it.
Well, in the light of what's recently happened, I'm not comfortable, but voters have to make up their own mind, whether they get it from newspapers, television or social media. So we have to be more intelligent in how we look at the things.
I don't want to see it constantly, but I can block certain things that come up, you know, as long as it's not forced on me. You know, I follow the Conservative Party and I don't have a problem with the things that pop up from them.
I think that one actually kind of comes down more on the user. They know what they're getting into when they engage with political parties on social media. They know that data is being gathered on them, even down to the things you like or comment or search for. Everyone knows this. So I don't know if there's any way to stop it. I mean, everyone else is using it for those reasons. I don't really care, really, you know. So, I mean, like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say about it? But no, I don't like it personally. But is it top of mind news? Is it top of page news for me? No, absolutely not.
I think it's a necessary evil. We've got into an age of using social media. I don't think we can avoid social media as being a part of what we do it. I think there has to be restrictions on how and limitations on how they do things, just like any other form of communication. Don't want to be bothered at home by phone calls all the time or on my phone, and social media would be the same thing. They have to be cognizant of what they do and how they use the data that they gather as well, which is obviously very pertinent to things at the moment in the US, and it would be the same here for Canada.
2.5 years after being elected, the honeymoon and sunny ways of Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party of Canada could be coming to an end. Recent polls show only a slight lead over the Conservative Party of Canada. Some voters feel they're having trouble keeping up with their promises. And of course, there is that trip to India, which was cause for much concern and criticism. We took to the streets to ask Canadian voters to weigh in on this question. What are the biggest challenges facing the Liberal Party today?
I think the Liberal Party doesn't agree with what a lot of the baby boomers do agree with, and their different views and opinions on Canada as a stage in the whole world really right now.
I find whoever's in power has the more scrutiny, so it's to kind of go through that scrutiny. I think it's every party that's in power that's the biggest challenge.
Getting people to believe that they're going to do what they say they're going to do.
Okay. Could you elaborate, please?
Oh, there's been a lot of things put forward in the past which have not yet actually been incorporated in bills in the House.
Credibility.
How so?
I think that they've made a lot of mistakes and they've made a lot of promises they haven't followed through on, and I think their voter base is a little dissatisfied and a little untrusting of them.
The deficit. Yeah.
Why do you say that?
I think they've got to get that under control. Spending, yeah.
They split the electorate, so I think they're isolating or fracturing the lower middle class, especially young white males. I think they really push them aside, and I think the challenge for Trudeau is to show that he cares about working class young men, and I think from my perspective that's his biggest challenge.
Trying to get in people's good graces. They're not very popular right now. Good luck to them. They haven't proven, well, what they've proven isn't good. I can't blame the people. The people didn't come to that opinion until they drove them to it. You know, it's a two-way street.
I guess it's an understanding of what the country really needs or wants. They're going the right way in thought, like equality in every way, for gender, for race, etc., but I don't think they're taking the right approach towards it. And I think getting grounded there with consensus with the rest of what's going on in Canada would help them.
I think that he should try and deal with some of the instability that's in the government right now, and then try to add more after. Okay?
Justin.
Can you elaborate?
I think that, ironically, the Conservatives' ads from the previous elections are now coming true, and he's a great set of hair for a great set of selfies, but the substance might be a little lacking.
There's so many of them, I really can't pinpoint one of them right now, but yeah, they too much money spent where it shouldn't be spent, and there's somebody should look into that.
Oh, well, I think of their image right now. That last trip to India was a bit of a PR disaster for them. So I think trying to overcome that. Otherwise, it seems like they're pretty much been on cruise control up to now. I'm not really aware of any major issues besides that. I still think the PM was fairly popular.
Liberals have been corrupt for decades. It's a party of corruption. It's all about deals. It's all about sleazy, underhanded stuff. Trudeau, if he doesn't have it written in front of him, he can't answer a question.
I think sticking to his promises. I would vote anything but Conservatives. I'd be dead before I'd ever vote Conservative. So I'm having a problem with supporting the Liberals again, but I'm a Liberal Party member, and so I'm leaning towards Liberal rather than anything. And I don't think Jagmeet Singh could pull a majority, so I think it's got to be Liberal. And I think holding his promises, I'm not anti-selfie kind of thing, but I think if he had stopped the selfies right after he'd been elected and then gone to straight, maybe it's boring, but straight politician mode, it would have given him a better public persona.
How many prime ministers have there been since Confederation? 19, 23, or 31?
23.
19.
23.
31.
23.
It's 23. Very good, man. Justin Trudeau was sworn in as Canada's 23rd Prime Minister on November 4th, 2015. That's all for this episode of Outburst. Like what you see? Well, you can watch more full episodes on our website at www.cpac.ca. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram simply by searching CPAC, or on Twitter at CPAC_TV. You'll find lots more great material there, and you can weigh in on the issues that matter to you the most. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of all my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Outburst.